Voldemort, the Dark Lord. He must not be named. Tom Riddle. A man of many names and an extremely dark past. We all know how it ended for him, but how did he get there? Welcome guys to another three-parter where we're going to look at the life of Voldemort from the very beginning to his downfall. So Voldemort was descended from Salazar Slytherin on his mother's side through the House of Gaunt. Tom Riddle was conceived whilst his father, Tom Riddle Sr., was under the effects of a love potion supplied by his mother, Merop Gaunt. When the enchantment was lifted, however, Tom's father abandoned his pregnant mother. His mother, Merop, staggered to the door of Wall's orphanage in London, gave birth to Tom and died shortly after. Her only wishes were that he looked like his father, that he was named Tom after his father, his middle name was Marvolo after her father, and that Riddle would be his last name. Riddle grew up in this dingy orphanage, completely unaware of his wizarding heritage. Since the Muggle orphanage knew nothing about his mother, they knew nothing about his wizarding heritage either. Instead, they believed that Merop was a circus worker, which Mrs. Cole told Dumbledore shortly before he met Riddle for the first time. Despite his ignorance of his mother's true background, Riddle did have some grasp on his abilities beyond that of normal magical children of his same age, and usually high degree of control over them. He could move objects with his mind and cause them to float wherever he wished. He could manipulate animals and creatures. He could speak Parseltongue, and he used his power to inflict harm on the other orphans. After getting into a fight with fellow orphans Billy Stubbs, he took his powers to hang the boy's rabbits from the rafters. On one occasion, he took two other orphans, Dennis Bishop and Amy Benson, into a cave where he performed an act likely with his powers so horrifying they were traumatized into silence. He also stole from the other orphans and hid things in his cupboard like they were trophies. When Riddle was 11, Dumbledore went to visit him. Now at this time, Dumbledore was the Transfiguration teacher, Dippet was the headmaster. Mrs. Cole told Dumbledore of how unusual this little boy was, sharing tales of his extraordinary influence over the other children. When Dumbledore was at last introduced to Riddle, Riddle thought that he was a doctor or a psychiatrist of some kind, and that he was actually being taken away to an asylum because what the staff had seen him do. He was convinced after Dumbledore demonstrated a flame-freezing spell on Riddle's cupboard and revealed that Hogwarts was a school for people with magic, whereupon Riddle realised that's actually what his abilities were. Tom also mentioned his proficiency for Parseltongue, and he asked if it was a common gift among wizards, at which point Dumbledore didn't give any reply. Dumbledore told Riddle off for stealing and made him return the items with apologies. He also warned Riddle to stop this misbehaviour, as Hogwarts had a zero-tolerance policy for it. Hogwarts had an honour code. Stealing, lying and cheating were not tolerated. Riddle wasn't actually surprised to find out from Dumbledore that he was a wizard. He was really excited at the thought of having abilities that no one else had. At a young age, it was very clear that Riddle desired to be nothing like anybody else. He wanted to stand out. He did show a fear of death, as he considered it to be a human weakness. He claimed that his mother couldn't have been a witch, because if she did, she wouldn't have died, and he therefore thought his father was the wizard. He asked Dumbledore if his father was an alumni of Hogwarts, but Dumbledore said he didn't know. Riddle's abuse of his wisdom powers did alarm Dumbledore, however, and he then did keep quite a close eye on Riddle going forward. Dumbledore warned Riddle that at Hogwarts he would be introduced to the laws that controlled the use of magic in the wizarding world, and that lawbreakers were punished with severity, but not by Hogwarts, by the Ministry of Magic. Riddle's demeanour changed after Dumbledore admonished him. He became more guarded and shielded his real reaction to things, adopting a kinder persona. Dumbledore provided Riddle with directions to Diagon Alley, platform 9 3/4, but also gave him a stipend from the school fund so he'd be able to go and get his books and his school supplies. Travelling on his own to Diagon Alley, Riddle bought some second-hand robes and spell books for himself, along with his first wand. It was at 13.5 inches, made of yew with a phoenix feather core from Ollivander's. Little did Riddle know that in the future it would share the same core as Harry Potter's. Ollivander said this wand was very powerful, and Voldemort was very pleased with it until it failed him against Harry Potter in Hangleton graveyard. Riddle was educated at Hogwarts from 1938 to 1945, and he was sorted into Slytherin House. During the summer breaks, he was forced to return to the same orphanage, and he absolutely despised and dreaded this place more than anywhere else on Earth. Riddle described the way he was seen as poor but brilliant, parentless but so brave, a school prefect and a model student. Due to his exceptional acting abilities and his handsome looks, he was able to convince virtually all of Hogwarts staff and instructors that his kind of facade was actually his real personality. The exception to this was Dumbledore. Though not necessarily suspicious, he hadn't forgotten about those misdeeds of Riddle's when he first met him in the orphanage. He also found the behaviour that Tom Riddle displayed during their first meeting unsettling. In turn, Riddle realised his mistake in showing Dumbledore his true self, and he never attempted to win him over as he had with the other instructors. In time, he came to both fear and despise Dumbledore. Over time, Riddle gathered himself Slytherin thugs, most of who became the first Death Eaters. Riddle claimed they were his friends, and in public he made it seem so, but in truth they were little more than servants. He cared almost nothing for them, often manipulating them into committing petty crimes and other misdeeds. But none of these were actually reliably traced back to that group, so it was never proved. Upon arriving at Hogwarts, Riddle became obsessed with finding out his heritage. He began researching it with an unmatched hunger. He focused solely on the identity of his father, still thinking him to be the magical parent, as he still had this belief death was a muggle consequence and a weakness. He searched for his father's name in the school trophy room, in the records of Hogwarts prefects, and in the records of Wizarding history, but found nothing to suggest that his father actually attended Hogwarts. He was eventually forced to accept that his father was the muggle parent, and that his mother was the magical one. It was around this time that Riddle gave himself the alias Lord Voldemort, to spare himself of the reminder of his filthy muggle father. Using his middle name Marvolo, which was taken from his maternal grandfather, Riddle discovered his mother's heritage and the Gaunt's bloodline's connection with Salazar Slytherin. Once Riddle learned of his ancestry, it was not long before he discovered the existence of the Chamber of Secrets during his 5th year, and he tamed the basilisk that resided within. As the heir of Slytherin through his mother's side, Tom was able to open the Chamber of Secrets that Slytherin had left behind in order to purge the school of all those who were unworthy to study magic. In Riddle and Slytherin's eyes, Muggleborns. Around the 13th of June 1943, the basilisk petrified many at Hogwarts, with its last victim being a student named Myrtle Warren, who was killed in the girls' bathroom when she saw the basilisk's yellow eyes. In the light of this, the Hogwarts Board of Governors decided that Hogwarts had to be closed. During that year, Riddle made special requests that Headmaster Dippet would allow him to stay at the school over the summer break. However, Dippet informed him of the governor's decision, and the request was denied. Realising that the chamber would need to be closed, and the culprit caught in order to keep the school open, Riddle framed fellow student Rubeus Hagrid and his pet Aramantula Aragog. He convinced Dippet that Aragog was the monster that had terrorised the school. He also noted that Hagrid was keeping a dangerous pet, although you can see the hypocrisy there, right? And Riddle ironically received an engraved trophy for services to the school. Dumbledore, who did not believe that Hagrid was actually responsible for this, managed to arrange to keep him on the school grounds as gamekeeper. Distrusting Riddle, Dumbledore kept an annoyingly close eye on him after that. Riddle realised that he wouldn't be able to risk opening the Chamber of Secrets again whilst he was at school. As such, he would use this murder to eventually preserve a part of his soul within his own school diary, the very first of his 7 Horcruxes. Around August 1943, Riddle went to Little Hangleton to learn more about his mother's family. While at the Gaunt Chat, he met his uncle Morphin. Morphin mentioned offhandedly during that meeting that Riddle looked awfully like that muggle, Merop's husband, Tom Riddle Sr. Riddle immediately demanded the identity of the muggle in question, and Morphin told Riddle the full story of his muggle father, which infuriated Tom to seek revenge. Riddle stunned Morphin and took his wand. He went over to the Riddle house and, using his uncle's wand, murdered his father, great-grandfather and grandmother with the killing curse. Riddle covered up his crimes by altering Morphin's memory causing him to believe that he was the killer. When the Ministry of Magic investigated the crime, Morphin, who had previously served 3 years in Azkaban for using magic in front of and against Muggles, he freely admitted to the deed and was sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban. Tom took the Gaunt family's signet ring from Morphin and later on would preserve another part of his soul within it to make his second Horcrux, wearing it like a trophy at Hogwarts. In the 1943 to 1944 Hogwarts school year, during his 6th year, Riddle questioned Slughorn, who was taken in by Riddle's charisma and talent, about the possibility of creating more than one Horcrux, something Slughorn felt deeply ashamed of in later years. In his mid-teens, Riddle already sought to make himself immortal, being unable to find any recorded information on making multiple Horcruxes. He wanted to split his soul into 7, as this is the most powerful magical number, and asked the experienced and knowledgeable Slughorn for an opinion before attempting this. Slughorn answered all of Riddle's questions under the belief it was merely academic curiosity, but was deeply horrified at the thought of creating multiple Horcruxes. Riddle succeeded in doing so at some point during this year, creating his first and second Horcruxes. In his 7th year at Hogwarts, he was made head boy, earned outstanding marks in every examination he took, and received a medal for magical merit. Riddle was regarded as one of the most brilliant students ever to attend Hogwarts, in fact admitted by Dumbledore. So that's it for part 1, guys. We are going to explore part 2 in the next video. We're going to look at Voldemort's life after he graduated Hogwarts and how he created the final 5 Horcruxes. Like the video if you like the video, guys. Don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss the next part of this coming out. And until next time, you take care.